Just to let you
All
know
right.
that this session is being recorded and transcribed. And Espen, you are going to be our person who's feeding back to the wider group afterwards. Is that correct? Are you still comfortable to do that?
Yes, I will try to take notes.
Perfect. You're going to take some notes. Yeah, take notes and feedback. So as you probably all, I'll just do a brief introduction then. As you probably all heard from the various discussions, and I'm assuming a lot of you are bridge players, you are aware that the future of club bridge is seen by some to be precarious. Apologies, I have a cough and a cold, so if I occasionally mute myself, it's because of that. So lockdowns have arguably affected clubs the most, with the premises being shut for lengthy periods and reopenings limited by COVID restrictions. Some clubs have managed to successfully operate throughout the pandemic by moving teaching and their membership online and teaching them how to play online. However, other clubs have been less successful. So I think we have 3 questions that we'd like to discuss. So we take them one at a time. And if you can either write your answer or suggest, raise a hand, because I think that would be the easiest thing if you want to say something. So if we start with question 1, has the pandemic and related restrictions hastened the decline of club bridge?
Yeah, I guess I'll start the ball rolling. So my name is Luan. I'm from Singapore. It's about close to 8 p.m. here. Well, I'm a tournament director. So in that region. So when I think about, just gonna start with a few assumptions. My assumption here is that the club bridge refers to both the club in the physical form as well as the online form, which is probably like hosted by the physical club when COVID happened. Okay, that's my assumption. Well, I think to a large extent, club bridge is still going to survive. Largely, especially because when we look at the demographics, right, not everyone plays bridge for competitive purposes. A large proportion plays for social purposes. Even competitive players also mentioned that the social element is still in play. If it's not in play, I think everyone will be playing chess already. So and the club is like a kind of like a place where people who know each other can still come together and play. And sometimes that sense of familiarity is very important. And especially as we grow older, we tend to be more used to familiar surroundings around us. So I think it's still going to be around. Well, for clubs with more competitive players, yeah, I suppose it will be a challenge because sometimes competitive players, they swing by many clubs pretty often, and it depends on their clients and etc. But and in that case, that could be a bit of challenge for clubs with a high proportion of competitive players. Yeah. You're muted.
Yes, because I was coughing. Sorry. Thank you. Gail Webb, you have a comment on the first question.
Yeah, definitely. I feel that this is a time where good clubs that have embraced it and have started using online bridge, keeping in touch with their members. I would say it's the opposite of decline. Our club has gone strength to strength. And yet I've seen neighbouring clubs who haven't wanted to use online. They are disappearing around me. So I think it was a time of survival of the fittest. We started with BBO, and that was the only game around at the time. And that got all our members that knew one another together, but it wasn't particularly good in actually bringing new people on. But when RealBridge came along and people were able to meet one another, across the table, see what they look like, friendships have been made through RealBridge. And I'd love to see how people have actually been meeting up now that we're able to for coffees. Somebody did a Romanian Easter celebration for members of the club that they could have in their garden. And they were inviting people they had met through RealBridge. They had never met them physically before, and they haven't yet sat with cards in their hand, but they have actually shared a meal together. And so I think the club element is actually strengthened. But I think anybody who didn't take online bridge on, then it will be the decline of some of those clubs.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gail. Jose Julio, you had a comment to make. Jose, you're muted.
I was. Thank you. At some point, yes, the pandemic has hastened the decline of some clubs. The ones that didn't move to the online bridge suffer some decline. For instance, our club in Madeira has been closed for the past 15 months. So some of the players are playing online, some others are not, but the club itself hasn't been working as a club. I also direct some clubs in the mainland where I direct them online. And those have become active, more active than they were before. So where they had 2 to 3 tables, they now have 5 to 6 tables playing regularly every week. So I agree with Gail. It's a survival of the ones that want to adapt. Being the fittest here is being able to adapt.
Thank you, Jose. Joan, Forsyth, you have something to comment on?
Yes, thank you. I agree with most of the previous speakers that certainly in Scotland, speaking as Scotland as a whole and also at my individual club, overall in Scotland, there's probably more bridge being played because of the online platforms than there was before. And many clubs have actually joined together. The small clubs who just didn't have the critical mass or couldn't produce the trained TDs have joined together, considered to be temporary in the first instance. However, the one aspect in Scotland is, although recognising the truth of some of the comments in the chat that spread, if we remain in a COVID restricted world, the contaminated surfaces and therefore cards as well, the risk is thought to be less than it was. As long as there's any social distancing, it's considered in Scotland that club bridge cannot continue. And so I'm interested that clubs are opening up. So certainly with card play. So a bridge table does not allow social distancing even of 1 meter. So it's really, it is going to be a challenge.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. I think that's it. Those kind of challenges that clubs face are very regionally and country specific, depending on how lockdown and restrictions are understood. Yes. Gail, Espen, did you want to ask a question? Is that why your hand is up?
Not ask a question. I just say it's very interesting. I think what they all agree upon, that the clubs that have embraced online have improved and will continue to improve. So I think the truth is that on the club bridge will change, but bridge will actually improve.
Yeah, thank you. Those of you who have had your hands raised, can you take them down unless you want to ask another question? Just otherwise it's confusing for me to know who actually wants to speak. Thank you. Does anybody else want to add anything to the first question, or shall we move on to the second? Jose, did you want to say something?
Yes, just a quick note. So
Okay.
in short, I don't think there's going to be a decline of the club bridge, but the club itself is going to change, not the club bridge. So there's still clubs, there's still the sense of clubbing, when entering the second question already, but it has moved and it's now becoming at present online, and in the near future, I agree with Espen, is going to become a hybrid form of club.
Perfect. I mean, those of you who don't want to speak, do feel free to put any observations or thoughts that you might have in the chat. But I think we will move on to question 2 before we, or do we now have people who want to, sorry, I'm trying not to rush on. Shireen, do you want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to say that there are also new opportunities that have come about. The Bedfordshire Online Alliance is a very good example where a group of clubs got together and they worked out there was no point in having competing online games on the same day of the week. So they timetabled it, had a rota, and they enjoyed learning how to set up and run games as a team of people, which was very nice. The U3A clubs, they were quick to take on online bridge with real bridge, and many of them had never played teams before. And when I suggested they would like to play teams against another U3A, because it was a like-minded community but geographically hundreds of miles away, they took that idea and ran with it and love it, and they like playing teams against other U3A groups. So the thing that's interesting is you can have like-minded sub-communities of people that wouldn't ordinarily meet up, but now they have a chance of connecting with their like-minded friends. So just something to keep in mind.
Thank you. And Adam, do you have a...
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of talk about hybrid solutions, and I think that people have been talking basically about hybrid being something where people play in a club face to face at the same time as other people playing the same boards online. But I think that what we're more likely to see is that the clubs who held more than one session a week in the past are likely to fall to maybe one session of face-to-face and another session of online. So that would be a different kind of hybrid solution, in as much as they play face-to-face and they play online at a different time. And I think there are many clubs that do that. I also think that the bumps on seats will fall dramatically. I expect there'll be around probably half the people going back to the club to their compared to what was happening before the pandemic.
Thank you. I think with that, we're going to move on to question 2, which is, because you touched on this, a number of you already, which is this mixture of face-to-face and digital play is being trialled by many clubs. Does this threaten a sense of club community and identity if geographically distant bridge players can play online, or will a digital club transform bridge? Because this is something I think that was touched on by Christina and Nikki and various other people in the panel discussion about, you now have clubs with members from all over the world, and what does that mean for an understanding of a local club if your local club is suddenly huge? Any thoughts? Anybody want to?
I think it's not necessary that that this threatens a sense of club community. Like, for example, I mean, in Singapore we have like we are a melting pot basically. We have ladies from Japanese Association, American Women's Association. They play in Singapore because their husbands are working here. And what happens when they go back? And it means that they can't play physically with their partners for like 2 or 3 years. And with online bridge, so it kind of like allows them to reconnect their partners to play together online again. And I think this is a good thing, because it does allow like the community to be back together, even though like due to external circumstances or personal reasons that they cannot be physically in the same location, the same club.
Yes, can we go back to the hand raising? I think there was a number of people who've raised their hands for that. Shireen, did you want to say something, or is that from last time?
From last time.
Jose, did you have something you wanted to say, or is that also from last time?
No, it's a new one, a new contribution.
It's a new one, so go for it. Thank you.
Well, I have 2 examples for 2 clubs. One I direct, the other one I don't. In one club in Lisbon, they had the club closed. They're starting renewing the club. They took the opportunity to do some improvements in what they had. And at the same time, they started playing on Real Bridge, and they made a series of deals with other clubs outside Portugal. So this is a new club, a new sort of club where they are associated to several clubs, sort of like the league that Shireen talked about. But now they're becoming correspondent members of each other's clubs. So this is a new improvement on the club thing, I think. On the other hand, I have a very small club in Coimbra, in the central part of Portugal, where they had 1 or 2 tables, another table from Aveiro, 40 kilometers away, another one in Covilhã, another 40 kilometers away. So they come together in 4 city tournaments where they now have these 6 to 7 tables tournaments at least once a month, and they are becoming a club on their own right. So they're concentrating the club, even if these geographically dispersed, if that makes sense.
And you don't think there's any issues about those, geographically dispersed sounds great, but then how do you get people who are perhaps locally based to take on, the kind of admin, the running of things? Because that's often still a local thing, isn't it?
It is, and they still want to play online and face to face. So the thing they're doing now is they're organizing this kind of circuit where they'll meet at least once a month physically, as soon as it is possible, with some prizes, and they're inviting other clubs from other parts of the country as well. So they are compensating the small arrangements they had locally as a bigger arrangement, less frequent, but still making about the same money.
Thank you. Is there, I feel like we're drawing on the same people the whole time, which is fine, but is there anybody else would like to just share their experience of what it's been like in their club, or knowing of anybody else? Apart from Espen, but I'm going to call on Espen otherwise. Espen, go for it.
No, first, it is quite fun to discuss geographic disparity or whatever with people in England, because you think this is a big island and there's a huge distance. Because a club in north of Norway, people would have to drive an hour and a half to get to the club, and they still feel that they have a club feeling. They're not very geographically close. And and I think the guy from Portugal is quite good in that you don't need to be geographically close to have a club spirit. It is the activity you do that creates the feeling of unity. And I wonder if Adam can say something about that, because he has set up a club during the pandemic. And I do think he has people from quite far away from Manchester in his club. And he must have some idea about how the club spirit is evolving in his club.
Adam? We may have lost him.
Yes, Espen is right. Apart from doing a lot of directing for other clubs, can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, we can hear
you.
You
Me now. Okay. So, right. Apart from directing for a lot of other clubs online, I started my own club, and one of the bases on which I set it up was that I was encouraging people to come from disparate regions, primarily because I wasn't particularly trying to compete with the clubs who focused on specific small regions, so areas, towns, or even parts of town. So my club, I particularly have tried to encourage people to come in from anywhere. And most of my duplicates have probably about half of the people who are fairly local to me because they know me, and the other half are coming in from all over Europe, occasionally America as well. And I think it's been great, because I think it's fantastic for these people to be able to play with and against each other, despite the fact that they are nowhere near each other and it's totally impractical in the face-to-face world to do that. So, for example, in a typical duplicate, I'll have someone from Cyprus, a couple of people from Spain, Portugal, France, US, and various parts of the UK, all playing at the same time. And Espen's holding some fingers up.
4 minutes to go, I think, in the session.
Yes, I think we can. So sorry to interrupt you, Adam, because that was actually very interesting. But I think Espen is right. We need to move on to the final question, which is perhaps you can carry on from there, Adam, because that's very much about the role of charismatic enablers. That would be yourself, teachers and organizers who try to maintain a sense of community during the pandemic, who set up a lot of initiatives, who got their clubs moving online, or who tried to maintain that sense of, you know, continuity and that there was things there. So I guess the question to the group is, what role have they played? Any thoughts from anyone?
Okay, well, if I'm still on microphone, I could just tell you that I've done a lot of teaching online, and a lot of that teaching has been to people that I couldn't have reached out to normally because they're geographically far away from me. And I've also run a number of local clubs, tournaments in local clubs, as well as my own, where, as you've heard, that based on bringing people in from all around the place. I think, in essence, that the people who actually make this happen are probably incredibly important in this sense. Just one other thing then. It's interesting that virtually all the clubs that I work for and organise duplicates for, although they are self-sufficient in face-to-face times, they don't have anyone who wants to do this online. That's why they get me to do it.
Yeah, thank you. Shireen, did you want to say something?
Yes, I want to just say that in each country is slightly different, but in the UK, it seems that many small clubs rely on the goodwill and the helpfulness of volunteers within the club to get things done. And sometimes it's anything from the accountancy side to ordering stationery, and it can be as complicated or as simple, if you like, as setting up a match or a duplicate. But what's happened is people have enjoyed learning and embracing new technology when they have an interest in that. But also, our own personal experience at RealBridge is people who don't know much about technology have said, well, actually, I'd quite like to learn. So it's prompting people to learn something new and develop their skills. So yes, you need the charisma, but you also need a certain amount of commitment to learn something new.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Can I just, that's a very good point, that it's not just charisma, but it's also dedication and commitment. Thank you. Can I call on Jose briefly, because we are going to be running out of time? And Anna has made a very good comment before I call on you, Jose, about good communications. Clubs that have good communications are able to thrive. So again, not just charismatic leaders, but those who are able to communicate effectively. That's a very good point, Anna. Jose, did you want to add something?
Quickly, I have run two